Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 times actors got paid $1 million a minute.
Only a master of evil does.
For this list, we'll be looking at the highest grossing actors whose work on a movie reportedly earned them astronomical amounts of money. Do you have a minute? We can't pay you $1 million, but we'd love it if you let us know what you think of these big payday performances. Number 10. Julia Roberts, Valentine's Day. 2010's Valentine's Day has an 18% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and Time magazine called it one of the top 10 worst chick flicks.
He said, if you ever are with a girl that's too good for you, marry her.
But you know who loved the movie? Moviegoers, who made it a $200+ million box office hit, and Julia Roberts, who was paid $3 million for a quick cameo. A cameo that involved sitting on an airplane for 6 minutes next to Bradley Cooper, something most of us would pay $3 million to do.
You're leaning on my shoulder? Come on, it's the least I could do a 14-hour flight.
Those of you who are quick at math might be eagerly shouting at your screens, but wait, $3 million for 6 minutes of screen time? That's only $500,000 a minute! You'd be correct. However, her contract also included a percentage of the film's gross, which actually made her total around $14 million.
14-hour flight both ways just for one night? Wow, that's romantic. You're romantic. I mean, that's quite a gesture. That's commitment.
Number 9. Will Smith, Men in Black 3. While Will Smith probably wishes he could use one of those memory erasers to forget a few things he's done, we bet making Men in Black 3 definitely isn't one of them.
Okay, you know how you're on an airplane and the flight attendant asks you to turn your cell phone off? And you like, I ain't turning my cell phone off. That don't have nothing to do with no damn airplane. Well, this is what we get.
Given that they're in so much of the movie, it's hard to imagine the star of a film making $1 million a minute, but that's exactly what Will Smith did with MIB3.
Okay, you know your kid won the goldfish in that little baggie from the school fair and you didn't want that nasty thing in your house, so you told your kid it ran away, but what you really did was flush it down the toilet? Well, this is what happens.
Will Smith landed one of the biggest single movie paydays in history, taking home $100 million for his work. While we don't know his exact number of screen time, the film itself is only 106 minutes, so a $1 million a minute seems like pretty fair odds.
Hey man, how old are you?
29.
Oof. You got some city miles on you.
I'm starting to understand why we don't talk.
Number 8. Johnny Depp, Alice in Wonderland.
Have you any idea why a raven is like a writing desk?
While you try and figure that one out, allow us to tell you about how Johnny Depp made more than $1 million a minute from 2010's Alice in Wonderland.
The entire world is falling to ruin. Poor Cheshires off his teeth.
While it's unclear what his base salary was, it's been rumored that, because of how much of a success the movie turned out to be, Depp actually walked away with something like $68 million. His entire time on screen totals around 7 minutes, so while we haven't yet solved the Mad Hatter's riddle, we know one thing: that was one profitable tea party.
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Number 7. Marlon Brando, Superman. These days, superhero movies are some of the biggest moneymakers in Hollywood. However, back in 1978, that was definitely not the case, and the Superman producers needed a big-name star to get their movie off the ground.
You do not remember me. I am Jor-El. I'm your father.
Not only did they get a big name, they got one of the biggest in the business, Marlon Brando. Of course, he didn't come cheap.
I ask you now to pronounce judgment on those accused.
Brando was given a deal that, even then, was deemed unprecedented. Brando's $3.7 million salary for about 12 days' work and less than 20 minutes of screen time is certainly impressive, but especially so for 1978. However, it was his 11.75% back end that makes the deal list-worthy, as the final number ended up being around $19 million.
All that I have, all that I've learned, everything I feel, all this and more, I bequeath you, my son.
Number 6. Alec Guinness, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Obi-Wan Kenobi is on screen for about 20 minutes in Star Wars, and Alec Guinness was said to have been paid $150,000 for the role.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Nothing to scoff at for sure, but it was his negotiating of 2% of the back-end grosses that turned his deal from unscoffable to unbelievable. George Lucas even threw in an extra 0.25% to make it 2.25%. Guinness had been anticipating another £100,000 from these profits.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
And he couldn't have been more wrong. Star Wars was an industry-altering hit, and while this deal earned Guinness a nice $7 million right off the bat, over the ensuing years, that 2.25% translated into a whopping $95 million.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced.
Number 5. Jared Leto, Suicide Squad. After taking home the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for 2013's Dallas Buyers Club, we bet Jared Leto had quite a lot of negotiating power going into playing the role of the Joker in Suicide Squad.
There is something you could do for me, Doctor.
Anything, yeah.
I need a machine gun.
He would have used it to get himself a pretty payday worth $7 million for the role. Now that's certainly less than some of his co-stars, namely Will Smith, who was paid $20 million to play Deadshot.
Was this, cheerleading tryouts?
However, given that Leto's screen time in the movie only amounts to about 7 minutes, the role put him at exactly $1 million per minute, and that's no joke.
Oh, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
Number 4. Mark Hamill, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Mark Hamill was a relatively unknown actor back in 1977 when he made his film debut as Luke Skywalker in the first Star Wars movie.
I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
For his troubles, he was paid $650,000. Cut to 38 years later, the Star Wars franchise is a worldwide phenomenon, and Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker is one of the most recognizable and popular film characters of all time.
The map, it is complete. Luke. Oh, my dear friend, how I've missed you.
So much so that Hamill was paid between $1 to $3 million to appear at the end of Star Wars The Force Awakens. And when we say end, we're talking like the last minute or so, and he's not even on screen for the entirety of it. The Force is definitely with him.
The Force is strong in this one.
Number 3. Ving Rhames, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
He made it. I knew he'd make it.
Talk about more for less. Ving Rhames was paid $3.5 million to play IMF agent Luther Stickle in the third Mission Impossible film, which was released in 2006. Cut to 5 years later, and Rhames is back for Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Except this time, he has one scene at the end of the movie, a few lines of dialogue, and not even a full minute of screen time.
Luther Stickle, the firm of Carter, Dunn & Brandt.
I blew an entire weekend on the bottom of the San Francisco Bay. Well, thanks to you clowns.
And how much did that not even a minute cost producers? Apparently, Rhames was compensated a mega $7.7 million. To that we say, mission accomplished.
You actually said that out loud. Mission accomplished.
Number 2, Robert Downey Jr., Spider-Man Homecoming. Robert Downey Jr. was paid $500,000 and some back-end percentage to take on the role of Tony Stark in the first Iron Man movie.
Kill power.
It might not sound like a lot compared to others on this list, but it was oh so worth it. The film was a massive hit, and it not only jump-started the MCU, it also re-established Downey as one of the greatest actors out there.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
He became one of the biggest movie stars in the world, as well as one of the most important members of the MCU. So important, in fact, that he was endowed with $10 million to show up in Spider-Man Homecoming for what a Marvel Reddit thread calculated was exactly 8 minutes and 31 seconds of screen time.
And if you died, I feel like that's on me.
I don't need that on my conscience.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. George Clooney, Gravity. Because his role involved such a key dramatic moment in the film, you might forget that George Clooney wasn't actually in Gravity for all that long.
If it makes you feel any better, I coughed up everything but my kidneys on my first ride.
In total, Clooney's screen time on the film comes to about 18 minutes of the film's 91-minute runtime. But while his time on screen wasn't huge, his salary for the film kinda was.
You gotta admit one thing. Can't beat the view.
That is if you consider $20 million huge. And that doesn't even take into account the percentage of profits he negotiated, which earned him another $14 million on top of that. Although, he would have made our list even without it.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.